Welcome to Samvadh. Today we're addressing a topic which is quite prevalent in every family. I'm in conversation with Ms. Aarti Rajratnam on the topic sibling rivalry. Ma'am, what is sibling rivalry? Because in Indian families we all have siblings and they're very rare case of one child family. I've come from a huge family. We are 10 siblings and I'm the 10th child. Yes, we've had our share of, I won't say rivalry, I would say conflicts. We would fight, but we are best of the friends right now and all 10 of us are still very, very close. Ma'am, could you elaborate what is sibling rivalry?
So like you beautifully asked in your question, there is a difference between a conflict and rivalry. And every healthy relationship needs to have conflict. But rivalry is when two siblings or three siblings are competing for the same resources. And by resources, we are talking about the parental attention and affection. It's not anything else. Many parents panic when there is a conflict, thinking that children don't know how to adjust, don't know how to work with it. But in any healthy relationship, the conflict comes in to only help us understand that there is a change or that something needs to change. So for example, in the sibling issue, you'll notice that when the elder sibling might have been going to school and then the younger sibling suddenly becomes school ready. So the younger one wants the pencil or the crayon the elder one is using. He may have his own crayons or pencils, but will still want to use only the pencil or the crayon the other one is using. It's very typical, and I'm sure every parent is probably nodding right now.
Because the younger one is always in awe of the older one or wanting to, reach that space, be in that space, probably be accepted by the older one and always interfering. And I remember that because ours is a large family, usually the younger ones are going when the older ones are in with their friends, they want to be part of that group. And immediately they go running and complaining, Ma, Akka is not letting me, join them, she's pushing me away, or Anna is doing this. This is a constant conflicts. This Ram Lakshman is a kind of ideal situation which doesn't actually happen.
You've spoken like a perfect younger sibling. In fact, because because yes, the younger sibling is in awe of the elder sibling, and that is the only model that the child has, right? So that's a beautiful state also, because for them the role model is the elder sibling, and many elder siblings don't understand that and get irritated when this younger one tags along or wants attention. But this is where, ma'am, I need for us to understand the conflict comes in and it's also nature's way of helping children understand how to set boundaries, how to adjust when there is a problem, when to stand up, when to speak up, when to adjust, when to sort of give in, those kind of things, when to take a turn, those kind of things. So if I have to give you an example, let's assume that two kids are fighting to play with the cricket bat, and if you take a cricket ball situation, nobody wants to do the bowling, everybody wants to be batting. So they will be fighting for the bat, and usually the elder sibling is the one that's taken the bat and wants the younger one to keep bowling and fielding as well. And the younger one realizes after some time, I'm never going to get the bat. So then there will be
promptly will run to the mother, and the mother interferes. Yes. That how healthy is that, the parents?
So when the parent interferes, that's when the conflict resolution goes down, and it can become rivalry over a period of time. Because where parents make a mistake is they forget that the elder one is also a child, is not an adult. Somewhere by default they begin to think that the elder one is somehow very mature and can take adult-like decisions or adult-like or make adult-like choices. So what will happen is many times they say, you give the bat to him, you're the older one. You should understand by now.
The elder one is probably only 2 years apart. Yes. And yes, as parents, and I'm guilty of this also, I've always said this to my child, though they are 6 years apart, I would always say, she's the younger one. I've always asked her to give in, but I didn't realize that she was young herself, and I was building a responsibility on her to become an adult much before she was.
She was ready, and that's also the resentment that they carry sometimes. They say you took her side all the time. And I know I'm treading on very dangerous ground with you being the youngest sibling, but many younger ones know how to manipulate the parents better than the elder ones.
Oh yes, we do, and I'm not shameful about it. Most younger ones are. Do that, yes, I agree.
That's also one reason why the conflicts never end, because usually the parent takes one person's side, and then what happens is, whether they've taken the elder or the younger one's side, each one will remember whenever the parent favored the other one. So this one will have a list of times that the other one was favored, and that one will have a list of times this one was favored, and the parent becomes the villain in the whole thing. And you'll notice in the worst of conflicts, children will fight, and in 5 minutes they'll be hugging each other like they've long lost friends, and the parent will be shocked, because they would have come, given gyan here, tried to do something here, and then the whole situation sort of is out of hand. So this is where, to make sure that this doesn't become rivalry, the parent must never interfere. Many times they give excuses like they're actually hurting each other, they're very violent. As long as they are not hurting each other with weapons, we don't interfere. Because most children know what force they're using, especially because the elder one is conscious of the fact that the younger one is little. They don't actually, they just want to, threaten them so that they don't come and violate a boundary. He's probably playing with a game and the little one wants to also play, and they'll just use enough force to keep them away. But the parent and younger one does the melodramatic breakdown, screaming away. So the parent actually thinks major hurt has been caused, but it's usually never the case. Nature creates this, like I mentioned earlier, for them to understand how to adjust. And if they don't learn this conflict resolution in a situation outside the home, they will never know how to work together. And that's a very important step, because then what happens, even outside the home, they're letting go of each other or letting each other down, which is even worse.
I've also noticed that when a younger child comes, is born and they bring them home, a lot of times you see the older ones either pinching them or hurting them. I'm sure this situation comes only because of what the situation the parents have created, the insecurity parents have created. How do parents prepare the older child when they're bringing in another family member into the life? Because I personally feel that I haven't really prepared my older child for bringing in the younger one, and I was quite lost in taking care of the younger one. And as a parent, we are also very emotional at that time and overwhelmed, and somehow who has been the apple of the eye till now is ignored. So what tips would you give for parents to be preparing the older child for letting a younger one coming into the family?
The first thing is, we don't prepare them only towards the end. As soon as we know that there is a child that's going to be coming in 9 months, we start preparing the elder one. And by this, I mean that we are not going to tell them, you have to share your toys. Straight away talk about sharing, caring, those kind of things. But let them experience that sense of safety and security in the parent bond. This is the first thing, because we need to help them understand that no matter what, they will still be very, very important in the family, and their affection or attention is not going anywhere. So building connection rituals, building a lot of small, spaces. And when I say spaces, not just physically, but also emotional spaces where, the child can communicate. They can have the freedom to say, I don't like something. Because if we don't create that, we are not creating that safety that the child requires. That's the first. The second is, as the pregnancy progresses and the mother begins to show and things like that, to involve the child in actually touching sensing movement, to understand this is a life that is coming in. Not just a sibling, but the fact that there's a lot of excitement and exploration in the whole process. Then closer to the delivery, it's very important to let the child bond with another adult in the family. Like it could be a grandparent, a parent, like the father taking that role, or somebody else who can be the support structure, because the child is going to experience a lot of separation anxiety just before the delivery. Because also, unlike the earlier midwifery practice that we had, now most of these things happen in a hospital. And for children, the memory of a hospital is always negative, because they've gone there when they're unwell, or they've gone there for vaccinations, both of them being very painful. So it's very important for them to know that when the mother's going to the hospital, everything is fine. So that's why that bonding ritual with another adult at least 3 months before the due date is extremely important, because they may not immediately bond with one person. They may not like bonding with the father, who could be extremely busy, or they may not like the way the grandmother is dealing with them. So you may need to have 1 or 2 people to see which one is better for the child. That's one thing. Once the child is born, it's very important that you let the friends or family members who are visiting the baby know that they should bring a gift for the elder one as well, because they feel very left out. Suddenly everybody is bringing things for this little one, and no one's bringing toys or gifts for them. And if not, as a parent, I can have some gifts ready, and let the guest also give it to them. This is very important to sort of help them understand. You mentioned in your question, what do you do when the child is pinching, etc. That's an extreme form of rivalry where they are causing harm, and that is a sign that we've not prepared them sufficiently, right? The 2 subtle symptoms that most people miss out, see, obvious things like this we'll know, pinching, hitting, all that. But the ones that parents usually do not identify as rivalry are when the elder one suddenly becomes so caring, is doing all the things that the mother needs to be doing for the baby. So you'll see some children even being able to change a diaper. And mothers will be actually proudly saying, she's like my right hand, she takes care of everything. But that's a form of extreme rivalry, because the child says, I will be loved only if I'm useful to my mother.
So that's what the child perceives.
Yes.
So he's trying to get attention in another form of taking care of the
child,
which is not.
That's not their role. They're children also. So that is an extreme form of rivalry which we need to again address and understand.
But that we perceive or understand it as caring and such a
we give it a very positive tone, but it's actually one of the most negative, because what is happening is the child is saying, I will be loved only if I'm useful. And that's such a painful space to operate from for a young child.
How does this play out in the future, ma'am? Do they become
the rescuers in all relationships? They end up attracting very abusive partners who they're taking care of all their life, because they've become parentified. The word is usually that they become parents before they're actually physically ready to be parents. So even in an intimate partner relationship, they are parenting the spouse. Or in the team at work, for example, they are the ones that are overly nurturing everybody in the team, to the point that they're not taking care of their own needs. So if somebody is not come, they're even covering up for them, taking care of them, but not taking care of their needs. This would become a very dangerous pattern in the long run.
What are the other kinds of sibling rivalries?
The most common we see is what we call regression, where the child goes back to an earlier form of functioning. So for example, I already have toilet habits that have been established, or I already know how to eat, but I start bedwetting or I start soiling myself in school because I'm seeing my mother constantly cleaning the baby, constantly taking care of a little one. So I realize that if I do this, she'll probably take care of me as well. So that regression is very, very common. And it's very painful because many parents become punitive, saying, you're grown up now, you shouldn't be doing this. They need to understand it's coming from a very, very emotionally distressed kind of state, and they need to actually be more supportive of them. And that is a very, very important aspect of sibling rivalry, which is missed out very, very often.
They must be going through so much emotionally. It's sad that we can't recognize that.
And it's also very painful because they don't have the words for their emotion. And like I mentioned earlier, if we have not given them that space to say, I don't like this, they won't even know what to do because they're feeling discomfort, but they don't know what to do with it. A very common symptom that we notice with children is a drop in academic performance. So the child has been doing well in school, usually also because the mothers probably spent little time teaching them and things, but when there's a sudden change, many children are suddenly parceled off to tuition classes or something like that, then we may need to sort of focus back on those skills because it's telling us that the child is struggling. And it should all not become associated with the birth of the younger one. Many times I've heard school teachers say, he was okay till the sister was born and now he's not paying attention in class, those kind of things. So as parents, it may be very important to work along with the teacher and find out how they can support the child at home.
So you mean to say if the parent kind of informs the school and the teacher that there is an younger child on the way and I may not be able to focus as much as I used to before, I would like some support from the teacher. Would that help?
At Ganges, definitely it would help. I'm not sure about every school, but here I know that our teachers are sensitized towards that. But I also know that other teachers watch, and if teachers could take this feedback very positively and be supportive, it would really work. Because many times, teachers tend to take this as, now they don't want to do this also, that kind of thing. And if they've not been trained sufficiently, that can become a problem. But like you rightly said, it would work very well if the school and the parent work well together. The next symptom that I've noticed is aggression. So, they're violent with, just outbursts with other adults. The grandmother wants to feed them and say, no, I don't want this food, I want something else. So those kind of...
Is that a call for attention?
Actually, I don't use the word attention at all. I call it connection. Because somewhere the child is feeling a lack of belonging and a connection. So they're actually doing this, and immediately, the grandmother is going to say, okay, let me make something else for you, or let me do this for you, something like that. So they're seeking that. So if that is happening, then it would be nice if, both the parents make a little bit of time. And I know usually mothers are overwhelmed because the little one has not yet started sleeping well, she's also not rested. Some of them have postpartum depression kind of thing. So it's very important if the mother can even make small bits of time to just physically bond. And here love languages work. If you know what your child's love language is, it's a beautiful way to work through sibling rivalry.
Thank you, Aarti ma'am. It was an insightful conversation. I'm sure many parents related to this conversation. This is the part 1, and we hope to meet you in the part 2 of Sibling Rivalry in the next fortnight. Thank you so much.